Okay, now let's talk about what is a habit. Uh, you must be thinking that what is habit? It must be very easy. No, there is such a deep science behind what is a habit. So basically, habits are based on actual four parts, uh, which are cue, craving, action, and reward. Uh, let's get a very common example, but most people would say, let's say, people who are alcoholic, or like, for me also, it happened to me a long time ago, where you have this habitual habit of drinking every day. Now, there was a time that I would come home every day, and then the first thing I wanted after a day with patients, stressful, people don't listen to me, my advice goes unheard, and you come home frustrated, and you got kids at home, so it's a bit of a, that situation of stress. So then in that situation, the cue of my life was coming home, and then the craving you get is to relax. And then the action you do is pour a glass of wine, and then the reward you get is that immediate sense of relaxation. That's the essence of a habit loop. Let's get another example. Let's say some people have that morning coffee habit. Again, the same scenario. You wake up in the morning, you're a bit groggy, a bit tired and sleepy. So the cue is waking up in the morning, and then the craving is to be a bit alive, a bit more awake. So thereby you get your cup of coffee, and that's action. And then the reward you get that is that, like, boom, you feel a bit heightened. So that's the basic concept of a habit loop. So now that we know the habit loop, we can talk about how to use the habit loop to structure your life. And now that you know what is a habit, which is consists of cue, craving, action, and reward, let's talk about how a habit becomes habit. Let's say nobody is alcoholic, nobody's are smokers. When you have your first smoke, you're not going to be a smoker forever. When you get your first drink in your hand, you're not going to be alcoholic. So talk about how a habit becomes an imprinted habit. We need to know the actual science behind the habit formation. Now, to understand that, in this book, Atomic Habits, James talk about an experiment done by a scientist called Thorndike, Edward. In that research, what he does is basically he captures cats, and then he put them on a cage, and then the cat need to escape from the cage to get the food. And there is a maze that the cat has to go through. And first time the cat takes a long time to find the exit to the cage, and then he takes that cat out and then put them back into the cage again. And then what happened is, very strangely, after multiple attempts, that behavior of escape becomes almost habitual. Within few seconds, the cat is out of the box. So imagine how significant that finding is. Initially, the cat had to think how to go from place A, B, C, D, open the lever, etc. But after a while, that becomes habitual. That's where the danger is. Imagine another example in your life. Now, every day you reverse the car from your garage. If I ask you, how do you do it? You can't explain. You know why? Because that action has become so embedded in your life, in your brain, you're doing it by reflex. The reason that we do it is just to preserve our brain power. Imagine every day if you have to learn to reverse the car, or every day you have to know how to use the toothbrush, what will happen? Your brain will be overloaded. So it's a beautiful way of preserving our higher power to do important things, and thereby these minor things becomes very basic things. But when you learn something, a new skill, let's say you're driving for the first time, your brain really uses the brain power, and then once the brain is quite confident that this is now automated, the brain delegates that task. It's almost like the brain thinks, okay, now this guy can drive, so I'm not gonna think about it. It becomes into a basic instinct. Now, the reason that happens is when you're initially doing something like driving or playing the violin, your higher power, higher brain, meaning your frontal cortex, will work very hard to learn that skill. But after a while, that habit loop gets embedded, and then it goes into your basal ganglia, which is a part of your primitive brain. So that's the way that the habit works. So thereby we need to figure out how to control habit formation. Okay, now let's talk about how a habit is formed. Now imagine you have your first smoke with your friends at a university. Very first time you go out to, let's say, a match or a club, and you have your first smoke. But then very first time you smoke it, you don't get addicted because it's the first time. There's no habit loop there. But then if you do the second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time, that habit loop gets more and more consolidated. Because your brain is a predictive machine that wanna retain all the things that make you happy, relaxed and calm. So the very first time you have your smoke, it registers, okay, after smoke, this guy got a bit calmer. And then it registers that, and then when you does it second time around, again the brain registers, okay, hang on a second, this guy has smoked second time again, and then again he is much more calmer. So thereby the habit loop gets more hardwired. So that's the beauty about habit loops, either good habit or bad habit. Now we have to figure out how to break a habit.